Good morning.
Good morning.
How is everybody doing? It is, hey, Monica's already here. Good morning.
Good
Happy
morning.
Tuesday. Yes, it is a happy Tuesday. We have so much to share with you from over the weekend. So many things happened this weekend. But it's so interesting to me that this week we are talking about trusting God in the process of difficult times.
Yeah.
God's so funny. You're funny, because that's exactly what's going on in our house. And so I'll jump into that in just a second. I have some interesting things going down. But this week is going to be super fun. We're going to talk about because look, we're all dealing with difficult times, right? But this is specifically about heart disease, which is so relevant because why should you trust God in the process of difficult times? And obviously heart disease is no exception. It's one of the hardest things that we have to go through in this community. So, but real quick, before we dive into our topic today, I want to make sure that you're aware of one link, and that is in the description. That link is going to take you to our study source, our study source today, and that is in the YouVersion Bible app at Bible.com. And when you click on that, it'll take you either whether you're on mobile or desktop. If you're on mobile, it'll take you to download the YouVersion Bible app if you haven't already, and then it'll take you to the source. If you're on desktop, it'll just take you over to the study, and you can follow along with us.
Were you rewinding there?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Right, exactly.
I just wanted to point out your amazing sound effects. Anyway, no, hey, if you are just joining us, we wanted to welcome you here with this discussion this morning.
That's right.
And if you are new to our broadcast, we are here Tuesday through Saturday morning, every morning. And we're here to deliver God's word. What God has to say in our fight against heart disease. If you don't know us, my name's Javie. This is my wife.
I'm Jessica.
And we are with the Underdog Ninja Foundation. Here at Underdog Ninja, we believe in three things. That is faith, character, and action. So like I said, we start off here with that foundation. We start off our days with this foundation Tuesday through Saturday morning. And it's morning for us. It may not be morning for you when you're watching this, or if you're watching this live on different parts of the world.
Yep.
But we are still here every day, Tuesday through Saturday.
Exactly.
Except Monday.
So if you're wondering why Javie has such an amazing sultry voice this morning, this is what's gone down over the weekend. So our daughter, you know how we talk about both of our daughters have different challenges, of course, just like everybody's kids, medically speaking. But the one that we have that specifically, she battles a lot of medical stuff, and she has connective tissue disorder, and we've talked about that. But she also has asthma, and she hasn't had any problems with asthma for like over a year and a half. I think it was before COVID, and even then it was like minimal. It was like air quality or something, and it was just nothing. But she hasn't battled it in a long time. It's just been kind of hanging out dormant, because she has illness and allergy-induced asthma, not like activity. And so she hasn't really been sick. Well, none of us really ever get sick, ever. And lo and behold, the world opened back up a little bit, and we wanted to make sure these girls had the activity that they needed. And, we got them into the next phase of their swimming lessons at the Y. And man, we went 1 week and bam, we got a virus in our house. Praise Jesus, it's not COVID. We got tested, and it's not COVID that she brought home. So that's awesome. But she did bring home a virus, and we were in the ER all night long with her asthma Sunday night and
into Monday morning.
Into Monday. We were there all night long. We didn't go to bed until Monday morning, and it was rough for her. It's been pretty rough, and we got her back to baseline. So she's doing okay. We've been having a nebulizer constantly, but she is getting better. And so thank you for all your prayers for those of you that already knew that. And, but hey, parenting comes with perks. You also get the virus, and you get a virus, and you get a virus. So we're also fighting off this virus, and he's worse than me. Usually he gets sicker than I do, but he's like, "What's up, everybody?" this morning. So,
but
we're here.
But we're here, and I might not do as much talking. I'm prepared. I have my drink, and I have my throat lozenge that I'm going to take here in a second. But I think it's important. This week's important.
Mhm.
That's why I want to push through, because look, we did debate this, whether we should just not do this or not. And I just felt it's very important, not just for us, but for someone out there
Yeah.
to hear what God has to say to all of us this week about trusting him, about
Right.
trusting the process
Mhm.
through whatever storm you're going through,
Right.
whatever difficult time that you're going through. Understand that God is with you, but there's a process, and that we have to recognize that, trust in it, and move through it, move forward, no matter how we feel. And so I think it's really important, despite how we feel, despite how we feel this week,
Right.
We need to push through.
Well, it's so timely. And keep in mind, we've been resting. We took most of yesterday off. We just watched movies, watched Lord of the Rings. I interrupted Lord of the Rings right when he normally takes a nap during this movie. He told me this morning.
There's a part of the movie before all the action starts that I just usually nap.
He's like, you woke me, you interrupted the movie because we had to do some stuff yesterday that we had to do. And even though we didn't feel good, we did take most of the day off, like I said, but there was a couple of work things that we had to take care of. So I was like, look, if we don't do it now, we're never going to do it. You know that. And he's like, yeah, okay. But then later on, he told me that was the point where he normally naps during the movie. I was like, I didn't know you had a nap schedule for Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I wake up for the action pieces. But
you are so funny.
Now I'm going to be all off sync.
Now I'm going to start watching when I would have been napping. There's going to be whole parts of the movie that you've never seen.
That's true.
Just kidding.
It's like a director's cut, you know?
An illness cut. Hey, I want to bring up some people this morning. Hey, good morning, Monica. Annie. Good morning, Annie. Hey, Gaynor. Afternoon. I love when Gaynor comes because I get to say afternoon because she's in the UK and it's afternoon. And it's my favorite. I'm such an accent nerd. I really am a culture nerd. Yeah, Annie, we had, I don't even think we told you that she was sick, but yeah, she's on the track to getting better, but it's been a long weekend. But yeah, our house is, well, not quarantined like with COVID, but we're definitely going to virtual all our appointments if we can. Yeah. Thankfully we work from home so we can do all of our work, but yeah, it's just one of those things. And so that's why it was so important for us to continue this week if we could, and we can. Obviously, we're here. Did we do this study because it was so timely? It's why do we trust God? Can we trust God? How do we do that? How do we find the trust? And why is it important? So that's what I want to dive into. If you have anything else, I'll get going.
Definitely.
All right. He's like, you're like, definitely not. Don't make me talk. All right, let's get going. Day 1. And this is today, why trust is so important, right? And specifically, we know why trust is important, but why is it important in this situation, whatever situation we're fighting, and why is it important with God? So trust can be delicate and challenging to find. Most people have pieces of history where someone let them down or took advantage of them. There was existing trust extended to another, and that trust was shattered in the aftermath of betrayal. It doesn't matter who you are. I've witnessed a scale where pastors limit their circle in extreme lengths to people shutting out those that love them most to avoid loss again. Let me read that again because that sounded weird. It doesn't matter who you are. I've witnessed a scale where pastors limit their circle in extreme lengths to people shutting out those that love them most to avoid loss again. Yeah. Trust is one of the most important attributes of the Christian walk. Trusting God and his process is key to our faith journey. And yet, for most of us, our experiences in our past can leave us scared to death or unsure of how to trust. This reading plan will walk you through a trust journey. However, you must first understand why it's even important. So Proverbs 3:5-10 is an exploration of that why. The first step in our why is to acknowledge our God and his plans. An understanding of the power, depth, and perfection of his plan must be acknowledged by you and me. When we can embrace that his plan and process, the best possible journey to be on, something happens. God makes our path straight. There is a direct correlation between acknowledging him and the direction of our lives. I know it can be hard to trust the invisible and unforeseen, but you must extend your trust to God. When you don't do that, you are taking your future out of the hands of the Almighty and placing it into a dangerous place, the world. Yeah, that's for freaking sure. Take some time to meditate on today's verses and come to terms where your trust must be. Do that and watch God go above and beyond your expectations. Absolutely. I learned this the hard way, and it was a year ago I truly learned to embrace one statement: I trust in your process. I am continually reciting this phrase in my mind when I don't understand the situation that I am facing. Because I don't understand or don't know what will happen, trust is necessary. It's not something I decided to do once and then have not hesitated to do since. I must continually remind myself in the unknown that God has a plan. He is in control and he has my best interests at heart. So join me today in trusting God's process. All right, so Proverbs 3:5-10 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all that you do, and he will show you which path to take. Don't be impressed with your own wisdom. Instead, fear the Lord and turn away from evil. Then you will have healing for your body and strength for your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the best part of everything you produce. Then he will fill your barns with grain, and your vats will overflow with good wine. So it's interesting to me that this is talking about why trust is important. I feel like we all know why trust is important. I mean, generally speaking, as humans, why is trust important? Well, it builds bonds. You make better decisions. You don't have negative feelings. It's safer, right? You don't have to worry about the safety and stability of your relationship. These are all true with God, though. These are all exactly the same. And it's talking about how when your trust is shattered, right? So let's dive into that first. I feel like we talk a lot about this, but I think this is directly addressing this. So I really want to dive in on the trusting God, because there are so many reasons why people don't trust God. And most of them have to do with people.
Yes.
And that's really unfortunate, because you're putting on God, who is a perfect, amazing, loving, graceful being, entity, Father that created everything and loves you. You're putting your opinion and trust in him in the hands of broken people who are limited and mortal. And that's something we all have done. Most people do this, so you're not alone. But think about it this way. When you have a solid relationship with someone, like I have with my spouse, okay? He and I are unbreakable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, anyone could come to me and tell me something about him, and they could have video. And I'd be like, you're really good at video editing, because I know him so well. And I know all his deep whys for things that I would know there's a better explanation for whatever it is I saw in that video. Like, I know there's nobody's going to change my mind about what I know, not what I think, what I know about him, what I know about who he is with God. And also the fact that I've given him to God is a big part of that I know that God would shoot him down way before I got there. So anyway, but that's a side note. But here's the thing is that I wouldn't believe it. I would fact check like crazy before I ever believed something about him based on a broken person's opinion. Okay. So, but that's probably true for most people. Most people, if they got a really solid relationship, best friend, maybe something about your own children. If somebody came and told you something about your own children, I mean, wouldn't you ask them? Wouldn't you find out? Would you just believe it? Right. And so things like that. Right. So when you're really close with somebody, but with God, it's like we could have the most rock solid relationship with God. And then the world would tell us something about God, and the enemy could tell us something and twist the truth and really like mess things up. And then we just go with it. Why? Yeah. Why would we do that? Because we put God in a different box than we do people. Right. And you've seen this happen lots of times. Mm-hmm. And so have I. And
one of the things I know about my family, my mom, my sisters, no matter where we are with our relationships, whether how long I've talked to them, because we all have busy lives, And sometimes there's seasons of our life throughout the years that we don't talk for whatever reason. And it's like for my mom, no matter what, if someone was to go to her and say something contrary to me or whatever,
or about you, yeah,
she doesn't accept that, and then she'll discuss it with me or whatever else. And my sisters are the same way, and that's exactly
right.
What you're talking about. However, we could be that way with our own people, right? But when it comes to other things, maybe it's your upbringing, maybe it's your culture or whatever else, and you are very reluctant in regards to relationships to connect with certain people. You're suspicious. You're automatically questioning their motives. I was that way. But
Yep.
so what does that have to do with this? Well, number one, God calls us to love our neighbor, right? And we can't love our neighbor if we're allowing division, if we're allowing our preconceived knowledge or our past hurts or whatever, allowing that to get in the way of possible connection. And what happens to us is that we continue that with our relationship with God. This is I believe is the source of why we talk about we as humans put God in a box. We don't allow God into certain aspects of our life. Yet those aspects of our life usually are the areas that are giving us trouble throughout our whole life, keep holding us back, why we can't succeed in this, or why we're having trouble in this area, having trouble with our finances, or having trouble in our marriage, or whatever else. That's because the source is in this box that you're protecting. You're not allowing God in. And when God is, are we, this is the thing. Are we even suspicious of God? Well, if I do that, you're going, yeah, I'm going to have to go here. I'm going to have to unlock that box. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
Right. So how we affect, and I really believe is when we go, that's why that's why
Okay.
we are to love our neighbors, to be open and not to allow the world to dictate
Right.
those relationships. Because if we do it there, we'll do it with God, right? Who do you think is going to be there in heaven with you? Right? Your neighbors, hopefully.
Yeah.
And so God wants us to understand how we need to navigate the world, how we are not to allow the world to dictate these relationships, and the impact that we can make individually.
Well, I think as Christians, so we're talking about this whole believing other people about, when we go to trust God, we're saying that basically we're taking our experiences in the world and defining how we trust God based on that. So whether our upbringing in a church was a certain way, or our family, our culture, whether somebody hurt us or we blame God for something, but also religion. So many people talk to us and say, well, I'm not religious. And I'm like, I'm not either. There's so much misconception about what the word religion is not the same as belief at all. Actually, it's not even the same thing. By definition, even belief is a belief. It's something that you believe in. And the religion is a practice. Right. It is something you do over and over and over again. People watch football religiously. I mean, there's a reason why they say I watch football religiously or whatever. Religiously just means it's something that you do as a custom over and over and over for whatever reason. Your religion can be that you practice can be based on your beliefs. That's usually the case. But we aren't religious. We don't belong to some denomination. We follow Jesus, and we believe on Jesus, and we believe in God, and we follow God, and we walk with God. That's what we do. Now, I realize that everybody has that's an entire discussion, but the reason I bring that up, there's a reason, is because so many people, whatever, again, it's always people that skew our view of God. It's almost never God. It's always people. So whether it's a single person, to a family of people, to a culture of people, to a denomination of people. So there could be a religion that you were brought up in. It could be a church that wronged you. It could be your overall experience with Christians, or a few Christian, or one Christian. It could be your experience with, TV evangelists, which I'm just saying,
Mm-hmm.
no judgment there. Okay, I totally get it. There are so many, I'll say, really lame excuses for Christians out there that you cannot judge God based on people. You just can't. There's a sea of variety out there of how people view God. And if you're not willing to go look for yourself and really give God a chance without the skew of what your experiences with people have been, then you're going to miss out on who he really is, because people screw this up a lot. Okay. Because we're not perfect. We're in a sinful world. We're broken, we're limited, and we're not God. And so, we do our very best as human beings to, be a good example and to and be the light, right? And embody God's, kind of traits, love, hope, things like that, and faith, but we're not God. So you have to find out for yourself. You have to give God a chance and trust him in order to truly know how you feel. Yeah. Because when you're basing it on religion and broken people, Jesus came into the world, and he dealt with all exactly the same things we deal with now. People haven't changed since the beginning of time. People have a lot of cultural changes. There's a lot of things that have changed in culture, kind of, because time has gone on, but people have never changed. Right. The human condition is exactly the same as it's always been. That's how we can know that when Jesus was here on earth walking around with the disciples and things like that, the show The Chosen, it really was a lot more normal, I think, than we realized. People are the same, and we interact the same, and we react the same, and we interact with God the same, by the way. Yeah. And so when Jesus was dealing with the religious people, the Pharisees and the religious leaders of the time, he felt the same way about religion as you do. He was like, you're lost. You're so focused on your religion and your limitations, and not the power and the might of God and who he truly is.
So you miss his true visitation.
Exactly. And they didn't, they trusted in their religion, not in God.
Right.
Because when God sent Jesus to them and said, here I am, and they went, no, it's not what my religion says. So, no.
You weren't what I pictured.
You weren't what I pictured.
And that was on purpose.
And exactly right. Because God wants us to put aside our expectations. He wants us to put aside our experiences with other people. He wants us to put aside all that and look at who he truly is, and not what our expectations and our preconceived notions of him are. And that's when we can truly trust him as him in our situations.
We had our expectations. The people of that day had their expectations of what the Messiah was to be, what he was to look like. Mm-hmm. How was he could be, how was he going to be presented to the world? They thought he was going to be this, powerful king riding in on a steed. Instead, he seemed like this very everyday guy riding in on a donkey. Right?
Right.
But I mean, the picture that they had in their mind was beyond what they were seeing in front of them. Mm-hmm. And why? Because many times their religious leaders told them this. The world dictated those expectations. And, I want to say this. And we talked a little bit about this earlier, privately. There is this well, there's always been a cancer in this world, obviously, but things have turned up. The heat has been turned up, where those dividing lines are not so much blurred; they're sharpened. They're more defined. That break us apart as people, God's people. And it has infiltrated the Christian church, unfortunately. Whether it's the choices you make, whether it's cultural differences, whatever, we're being divided. Once we're divided, then we can be picked off. That's why I think this is very important. We talk about trusting God's process. Okay, trusting God. And look, there may be some things that you've made, maybe mistakes or things that you were brought up in, and you're not used to talking to that person, that type of person, or to show compassion, or to be even outgoing. But God wants you to trust him, to trust the process in love, and not shut yourself out, not to give in to those dividing lines. Look, Jesus was a rebel. He went against what the world was saying. I think that's what we need to do. Right now, the world's saying is, no, you belong in this group, you belong in this group, you belong in this group. And
that's not how God thinks.
And that's not how he thinks. And so we need to push against that. We need to push against those dividing lines and not allow us to be separated. And what I mean by that, sometimes we need to reach across the aisle. We need to reach across those cultural lines and understand one another. And if they don't understand you back and they hurt your feelings, okay, move on.
But you've done what you needed to do.
But keep going.
Yeah.
Don't let that experience dictate the next experience.
Well, and the same with God, like you said.
Exactly right, because it affects your relationship with God, and it affects what he wants to do with you. It affects the visitation and the gifts he wants to give you. Perfect example. Right now, I'm talking about how the Christian church is being divided, and it's being infiltrated by the world and the worldly thoughts. And so some of us are isolating ourselves. That's just as bad. We're isolating ourselves to a small community, just like what they were saying about these pastors. They only have their inner circle. Yet, aren't you supposed to be doing God's work? Aren't you supposed to be reaching out to the people that love you the most?
Right.
And so, just one second. We as Christians, we're like, okay, well, we've been hurt by the world, and I see all these horrible things happening. We're just going to self-contain, and 2020 taught us all how to quarantine ourselves. But we're doing that spiritually, aren't we?
Yep.
We're not allowing these things. We're not allowing ourselves to push back and to trust God.
Yep.
And to reach out to one another. And why do I bring this up? And what does this have to do with our health? What does this have to do with heart disease? It has everything to do with it. Because our emotional health, our emotional well-being, I can't say this enough, affects us physically.
Especially in a time when you're dealing with something as big as heart disease that's already wanting you to isolate, shut down, be depressed, avoid people. I mean, really avoid situations. And we've talked about this a lot before. You don't have much of a voice, so I put it in front of you.
I know.
We've talked about this a lot, is that when you, how do I say this? When you are shutting yourself out of everything because I want to avoid the negative, I understand avoiding the negative and not and cutting out the negative things, because we've talked about like don't watch the news because it's just all negative and all that. You have to know what's toxic. However, don't shut yourself out so much that you're not replacing it with something where you're doing the positive instead. The idea here isn't just to eliminate everything and then never replace it with something good. This goes with nutrition. This goes for fitness. This goes for mental health. This goes for lifestyle. This goes for spiritual lifestyle, health, relationships, anything, all of it, anything in your life, thought patterns, habits, whatever you're talking about. If you just eliminate a bunch of stuff that you shouldn't be doing, shouldn't be consuming, shouldn't be hearing, shouldn't be saying, shouldn't be experiencing, shouldn't be going there, whatever, and you take all the toxic stuff out, but you don't replace it with anything that builds, heals, and restores, then why did you do that? Who cares? You're still not building anything. You're barely surviving. You're basically just isolating yourself, and now you're vulnerable to being picked off by the enemy and lied to and really hurt more because you haven't built yourself up. I mean, you may as well just be the guy in the army, in like not the army, but the armor, back in the day that you don't have any armor, right? But you just go run and hide. So now you're away from the bad, but you don't have anything protecting you. You don't have any, you're just sort of like, well, I'm not near the fight, but I'm also completely vulnerable because I have no armor. I have no sustenance. I have no food. I have nothing. I've not replaced it with anything, right? So it's kind of a weird analogy, but I'm just saying that, if we can't eliminate all the foods we shouldn't be eating and not give ourselves the body what it needs, we can't take all of the people out of our life that are toxic and not replace those with better relationships. Now you have no relationships and you're alone. That's bad. You know what I mean? Like that. Okay, good. You got rid of the toxic relationships. You're supposed to do that, but you're also supposed to replace that. You can't try to just avoid all of the negative thinking and never replace it with positive thinking. You can't always be looking for what the devil is doing and never looking for what God is doing. Yeah. You have to replace it with the good, because then you can turn your back on the negative and the toxic and focus your attention on building something, restoring your body, building your body, restoring your health. Right. Building your relationships, building your relationship with God. Okay, you have to replace it with something good. And so when we get ourselves in the middle of 2020, for example, I can't tell you how many people I know. It was the weirdest thing. I was like, I thought I knew all these people. I thought I knew who they were. I thought I fully expected half of my Christian friends to just be like, ooh, we need to get the word out on like how to make this a better year. We need to restore hope to the people around us. We need all the stuff I was doing. And I'm not trying to pump myself up, but I thought that's what we would just do. Like I just naturally expected that people that I was friends with would just do that because that's what we're here to do. That's the people that I thought they were. I fully anticipated that. Nope. They all shut themselves out of social media. They all shut down. They all said, nope, I'm protecting myself from all the negativity. And they basically did nothing. Yeah. And I was like, oh, and panicked, by the way. Then they panicked. And they panicked about the politics that were happening. They started screaming at the government. And I'm like, what's going on? Look, we all have to be vigilant about, always doing what God's asking us to do. I don't mean you need to know everything about what's going on the news. I don't mean you need to study up on all the cultural things that are going on. I don't mean that you need to always be vigilant about what's going on with the arrows of the devil. No, I don't mean any of that. I mean, you need to be vigilant about what God's asking you to do and then go do it. And that's trusting the process, whether we're in a pandemic, a spiritual war, a physical war, whatever. We're here to do God's work. And it doesn't matter what we think about what the world is doing. That's part of trusting the process. So when that comes down to our health and heart disease, when we're finding ourselves in a war zone of health, we're like, you're all of a sudden just battling everything. And you're like, wow, it's just one thing after another. Understand that God's taking you through a process that's probably, if we think about it, not just to suffer. We're probably not just supposed to suffer in these things. Otherwise, why would he allow them to happen? They are here to build us, to grow us, to strengthen us. But we have to take that on. We have to decide that that's what we want to do. And that's trusting God in the process. Looking to him in the middle of adversity and saying, hey, what am I supposed to get out of this? I trust that you're doing something. That's saying I'm trusting that you're doing something. So what is that? I need you to tell me so that I can work towards that. So this is today talking about why is trust important? And so imagine not trusting God, not trusting each other, all those things that I just laid out in life. Why is trust important in all of that? Because it strengthens relationships, because it strengthens our own ability to stand on solid ground and move forward, because we're already not on solid ground.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it provides the solid ground, especially and primarily with God.
Right. Now, look, we're not pointing the finger on anybody. I think we've all been here. I mean, think about some of the things that we've been locked into. Yes, you have 2020, but how about the other things in our life? I'm sure there's something, some time in our life, some season in our life where we were so focused on what was happening.
Yeah.
And what worldly thing was happening. And we forgot about what was happening in the spiritual realm. That thing that someone said to you,
Mm-hmm.
how they hurt you, you're allowing that you're taking that hurt and you're taking that pain and you're moving forward with it into the next relationship or the next moment. And you're dragging that along with you and you're allowing that to dictate and cause more division. And you miss God's visitation, right? God has the answer right there for you. How many times has that happened to you where you're so focused on whatever is happening, whatever has happened to you? And then later on, you realize God has been giving you that, trying to reach you forever.
Mm-hmm.
God has been trying to show you the answer forever. If you would have just did this sooner. Look, early on in my heart disease journey, I started losing a lot of friends for whatever reason. And some of them were very toxic relationships. And those people hurt me. And because they hurt me, I allowed that to dictate all my other relationships. So I made this excuse that I needed to remove stress from my life. And that equated to me isolating, pushing other relationships out and not connecting with new ones, not creating new ones. I isolated myself. And so I focused on me, right? I focused on what I needed. I focused on my, I went to the gym more. I ate what I wanted to eat, what I thought was nutritious. It didn't matter. But I didn't allow that emotional healing to go on.
Mm-hmm.
And what I thought was removing stress within my life, I was actually causing it. I was causing more stress because deep down I was depressed. Deep down I was lost. Deep down I was in this darker and darker place. I didn't realize it. I was making excuses. I was shoving my feelings down and putting them aside. And I was missing God's appointment. I was missing what he had for me. I didn't ask that question on, Lord, what do I have to learn from this? I saw it as, well, God doesn't want me to have this relationship. God doesn't want me. Maybe God just wants me to be alone, right? And I started making those excuses. And I started speaking for God rather than speaking to God. And
amen to that.
And
yeah,
I think that is the key. We need to start speaking to him, not for him, in this process. If we're trusting in him fully, if we say we believe in him, we trust him. That's part of the belief, by the way, guys. When you say, oh yeah, I believe in God, do you? Part of that is trusting him. When you believe in him, you give all of you. That's belief. And part of that is trust. And sometimes it's trusting him in these difficult times and things when we don't understand it. But a lot of things we say to one another is God is doing something in this.
Well, and you can see it. And the more you live with God in your life, the longer you do that, and the more you practice living with him in your life and watching what he does and watching his patterns and learning his character. You know, when my husband does stuff like, I mean, I know everything that he does. He has all his patterns. I have all my patterns. Like if something's outside a pattern, you know how when you have like a spouse or a family member and you just go, well, they're not like, it's not like anybody else would know they weren't acting normal, but you know, they're not acting normal. Like you can just, something's outside their character, outside their pattern. You start to know God's pattern. So I know I can tell what he's doing. Doesn't mean I can tell exactly what he's doing. I don't know what's coming, but you and I discussed, like, you can feel something's coming. We just can, it's a pattern. We can see God and how he interacts with us in the world. And look, God can do whatever he wants. He'll do new things. He'll do new things that are not the same, mostly good. But I mean, in that respect, but most of the time when he's doing stuff, there's a pattern, there's a process. When you say trusting God in the process, it's the process. Usually it's the same process. And then you just apply that over whatever situation. There's a process. Look, I wanted to point out this said in the devotional text that we're using. It says, because I don't understand and don't know what will happen, trust is necessary. It's not something I decided to do once and then hesitated and have not hesitated to do since. I must continually remind myself in the unknown that God has a plan. He's in control and he has my best interest at heart. So all I have is trust. Yeah. If you claim to have faith, that's trust. I mean, look, because we don't understand what's going to happen, because we don't know, trusting in God is vital. It is essential. And, you know, one of the things too, keep in mind, when I just said replacing the getting rid of the bad and replacing it with the good, how many times in your life have you done those things and realized how important that shift was? And that shift would have never happened unless something big enough was to hit your life to create a pattern interrupt. We're creatures of habit. We're creatures of routine, of pattern. I mean, that's just how we are as humans. In fact, in order to achieve consistency in our habits, they have to happen the same way over and over again. We're creatures of habit, and that's fine. But in order to have a shift happen, and like, I got to go this way now, this needs to change. We've had lots of clients tell us this, you know, that my heart attack was my saving grace. That was the thing that shifted my life and made me make the changes, woke me up, made me understand that things weren't actually going as well as I thought. I didn't realize that my body was sick. I didn't realize that that I was having emotional and mental issues, or I didn't realize I was away from God. And all of a sudden, God just throws this thing in my life. I mean, God doesn't throw heart disease. He allows it. Okay. He doesn't create negative experiences and sickness. He doesn't make us sick, but things happen and he allows a certain amount of resistance on us in order for us to have, a wake up call, in order for us to have to increase our faith and to challenge us. And to grow us. So there's been so many people that have said, that was me. I'll bring this up. Exactly, Annie. Annie's a perfect example. She has said over and over and over again, my heart attack was the best thing that ever happened to me because I'm a completely different person now. She is, and I've watched it happen right before my eyes. Just it changed everything about her. And look, Annie wasn't a terrible person before. You're not a terrible person. It's just God knows what's better for us than we do. And then when it happens, we're like, oh my gosh, I would have never understood how this was possible, or that I needed it, or even how to get here, or who this person even was. Right. Until God just does a work in you. We just don't like what that work looks like. If it happens to be something that's scary and challenging, we're like, well, why does it need to be that? And here's the unfortunate part is, as humans, it does need to be that, because if God was to throw a pony at you or a unicorn, you wouldn't change, and neither would I. Like, that's not how it works. We don't change because God says, things need to change up around here. Let's throw a party and you'll totally just, be forced to make changes. No, of course not. He throws adversity at us, lets us go through some challenges, and then we're forced to make some decisions. and we are put in a corner, and we have to have extra faith. We have to have extra trust. And it's all a process of moving us through our path, down our path, toward where he wants us to go and who he wants us to be, who he designed us to be. And those are all ultimately the things that we want too, by the way. It's just we don't like the path there. So it's just absolutely a beautiful process. Look, how many movies have we watched where there's always the conflict? There's always either the villain or, maybe it's an inner conflict or it's an external conflict, like a villain or something, or like a bad guy, or it could be the conflict could be a situation like an outbreak or something, like a volcano. I don't know, whatever it is, dinosaurs. But there's always a conflict. There's always this huge amount of I don't want to use the word conflict again, but challenge. There's adversity. There's some sort of ups and downs in the movie. Who's watching a movie that doesn't have that and is interesting? How many movies have you watched where everything went fine and we were like, that was a great story? No, it wasn't. It was a sucky story because everything was just boring and it was fine. And we're like, well, that just looks like a regular Sunday for a family. That's great. But no one wants to watch that movie. Why? Because we love a good story. We love a story of overcoming something hard and coming out on the other end. And it's a happy ending. I mean, but look, it's a happy ending. Why do we even care if it's a happy ending unless there was a chance that there wasn't going to be one? We want to see that overcoming the adversity story because we love the human spirit. We love how God designed us. We love that he's designed us to be these creatures that have the power to overcome these things, that have the power to learn and adapt and overcome, right? And that's something that we've been saying a lot more of lately, adapt and overcome. With heart disease, we're forced to adapt in a lot of ways, but also continually. We're asked by God and in heart disease, we're asked of the disease to adapt to things. Our body says, well, you're going to have to adapt to some new things. And daily, you've got to adapt your thoughts. You got to adapt your habits. You got to adapt your perspective, and those are things that are all a process. So God's doing a work in us and in our lives, but we have to trust that it is something that he's going to take us through with a goal in mind.
Right. Exactly. Bring up Monica's thing.
That is me the last 5 years and 20 years with a partner because it hurts so bad inside because I have a big heart. Yes, you do. And made bad choices with people. I'm happy with my kids, grandkids. At the same time, I'm working on relationships with other people and having friends and not being afraid. Exactly. A lot of trauma and hurt. Exactly. And I used to be the same thing you were talking about too, where you've done all of that same thing where you isolate yourself and we've all been jaded. Okay. Yeah. Because people hurt people and then hurt people. I mean, how many of you have seen the patterns in families? Hello, can we get an amen? Right. There are so many generational curses in families. I mean, we both experienced it. It feels like it never ends and you can't get out of it. And so people just continue hurting each other and we get so jaded. And you're right. Eventually that makes its way to God. But I mean, I've been the person that will be so focused on my own situation and my own pain that I don't care about anybody else. I don't care about what God wants. I don't care about what the right thing to do is. Man, that was in my 20s for sure. I always talk about my dumpster fire years. And I just was like, there was so many things wrong with what I was doing and who I was. And it was a selfish human being. But that's why I know this is why we have these conversations, because we have come so far away from those people and it's all God. And trusting him in the process is how you get from being the person you don't want to be to the person you do want to be, or going from the situation you don't like to a situation you do like. Right.
Exactly. So look, this week we're going to be diving into trusting the process, God's process.
Yep.
Right. Trusting God during difficult times. So we're going to dive in to this week. And look, I want you to be prepared. I want you to be brave enough, have enough courage to really open your ears, dig down, and be honest with yourself. Okay? And look, let me say this, and then we'll move on. We talked a lot about external relationships, the relationships with people, the things that have been done to us. Sometimes there's people that come back into your life. You're doing fine. Mm-hmm. And then they come back into your life and they have you on pause. These people have you on pause. They have you, and what I mean by that is that they have you on pause of what you used to be.
Who you used to be.
Who you used to be. Or how they perceive you to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've built a whole story, a whole world
mm-hmm.
around their perception of what you used to be or who you are. Because what you used to be, okay, there might be some truth to that. But they've moved on and they've built, and you haven't talked to them. But now they built this whole, out of perception, they built this whole thing. And now they view you, your world has to look like this. And you're this person, you're this person. That means that you do this and this and this. And they come into your life with that toxicity
mm-hmm.
and try to drag you back. And then what happens, we think, okay, that's obviously you don't know me and everything else. And maybe we even push them out of our life. We close the door. Okay, all right, dude. Well, you stay there. I'm not that person anymore. You move on.
Mm-hmm.
But do we? Why does God allow that person back in our life? Do we take on those words? Do we take on those things that people are saying
mm-hmm.
about us? Those people that want to drag us back to our past and remind us of our past mistakes? Or do we give in to who they say we are? And then do we then take that into our life, into our relationships and say, oh, maybe this is who we are. Okay. So this week when we're saying trust the process, trust God through these difficult times, why are we going, what is it that we're going through, and why is God showing this to us? Maybe it's those things that we've allowed other people the world to dictate who we are and define who we are. Right. God defines who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let the world define you.
Well, in trusting God, I mean, the beauty of it is that He's not asking me to trust people. He's asking me to trust Him in the process. Now, we have relationships we build and we build trust, and there are people that I trust. And that's a beautiful thing. But that's not what God's asking. He's asking us to trust Him because He's not going to bring us back to our past. He has let it go. He's forgiven us. That's covered. He wants us to always move forward. None of that is from God. None of that it may or may not ever have been who you are. It may have been who you are. Who cares? This is stuff that God's, if you're looking towards the future and what God has for you and who He wants you to be, none of that, it's irrelevant. None of it matters, right? Because as long as you've taken any of that's true to God, then that's all you needed to do. And you need to trust Him in the process of clearing all that up for you and making you a different person and restoring you to who He wanted you to be and redemption that He has so graciously provided for us in that process. And not only overall for our entire life, our greater redemption, right, through Jesus, but those little redemptions through just day to day, the redemption of our feelings about heart disease, our feelings about our spouse while we're dealing with heart disease, or our, confusion about how to even live our life, or our fear or our pain, or all the things. God wants to redeem us through that process. He wants to purify our hearts. He wants to give us the greatest gift, which is eternal life, and living that though here in the process. Trust isn't something we do once. Like it said, trust is something we do daily. Yeah. I didn't trust Him one time and then I'm like, cool, I never have to worry about that again. No, we work on that. We constantly build that trust all the time. We're always making sure we're all over that. Why? Because I would never want to lose that, right? But I don't ever want to lose that with God either. So I'm building that daily by being in His Word, by walking with Him, by trying to understand what He's doing and making sure that I'm in alignment with Him.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Relationships, especially our worldly relationships, our relationships with our kids, our relationships with our spouse, we're always working on that trust. We're
Mhm.
not, it's not that we distrust each other. It's just we go through seasons in our life. We go through different challenges in our life.
Mhm.
And we have to learn to trust each other through that. And look, when our kids are growing up, when they start growing up and they move out of the house, they start taking on adulthood. There's a lot of times as parents, we don't trust, obviously, their judgment. Yeah, they have a lack of experience. They have a lack of knowledge, and they are stepping into this world. And yes, we do need to try to guide them, but we also have to trust them. I think that's been some mistakes that we as parents have made, that we don't trust that they're making the right decision. And maybe that we have to trust the process.
Maybe they're not making the right decision.
Maybe exactly right. And they're not making the right decision, but maybe we need to just trust that God is with them. And God is giving them this experience for a certain reason, and they're going down that path. I think it's more important that we as parents, we may disagree with them and let them know that, but we still love them and we do trust them. And we trust that God has them. I think that's a big thing. And
Right.
what you said earlier about your relationship with me, you trust that God will deal with me, and you trust in my relationship with God, right?
Yeah.
And
yes, exactly.
So that's the leading thing, is that you trust my relationship with God because you know my relationship with God, and that if I was to do something, I make a decision, you know that I have to go through God first before going through you.
Right. And I would much rather, not only would I much rather it be that way, but that's also another level of trusting God in the process. Yeah. The process, it depends on the relationship. So like, let's say, like in our marriage, there's a process with God. In parenting, there's a process with God. The reason we bring all these different situations up is trusting God in the process with your health, trusting God in the process with your relationships, with your money, with everything. I know we're talking about heart disease here, but heart disease really takes over your whole life. Mm-hmm. So heart disease also affects your relationships. Yep. It affects your money. It affects your job. It affects your mental health. It affects all of that. Yeah. Trusting God is part of all of those things too. There's a process in trusting God with your health. There's a process of that. And with, like I said, parenting and relationships. So I cannot wait to dive deeper into this week.
Yeah, I want to say good morning to Rita.
Oh, good morning, Rita. Good morning. We see you.
We got to talk, and I just wanted to make sure.
Absolutely.
Say good morning.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad that you're enjoying this topic. I think it's important for all of us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you didn't get to see us in the beginning, this is very timely for us too. Mm-hmm. So we're interested in finding out what God has to say under this too, because we're taking this seriously because we're going through it too.
Yep.
We're going through not just health challenges. We're going through some of these mental challenges and things that we've talked about today. Mm-hmm. We all go through ups and downs, and the enemy's always out there. The enemy's always out.
Yep. To poke you with a stick.
But right now, this week, we're really living this out, and we're asking God, okay, all right,
what do you have in this?
What do you have in this?
Yeah.
What do I need to? What in this process am I needing to trust you, Lord? What is it that we're going to get out of this? What not get out of it? What is it that you have me to learn?
Yeah. Right.
Right. And so I trust in that. And we're really going to live this out. We're going to try to walk. We're going to try to walk this out with you as best as we can. Very openly. Okay.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing is, we have some adversity this week. I mean, we have, we're sick and our child is super sick, and we had, a huge rock in our boat this week, or not rock in our boat, rocking of the boat. I don't know. But we know what we need to do. We know, where we need to pick up the pace. We know where we need to relax.
How many of these can I take? I mean, seriously, my throat is so sore.
The cough drops, I know.
I'll take them all.
Just put them all in like a boiling pot of water and just drink cough drop syrup.
That sounds gross.
I know. Remember the cough drop syrup you used to drink when we were kids?
Yeah. Oh, God.
But anyway, so this is something we know what we need to do. And so we're going to walk that out this week. And this is a really cool study, I think, and discussion this week for us to be doing, just based on the fact that and look, we planned this topic a month ago. So we wouldn't have known. So it's funny how God just like knows what's going to happen. He's timing things for us. And so he knew that we would need this word this week. Just like you.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Hey, so if you've gotten something out of today, I hope you did. That's the whole point. And so if you did, please hit like, share this with your friends and your family that you feel that would benefit from what is being said here today and this week. Please share this. I would really appreciate that.
Absolutely. And, it is bigger than us, this mission. I mean, we ask you to share because we can't do this alone. This mission to help people with heart disease, to meet them in the gap, in that space between when they leave their doctor's office and when they're living their life. And, what do we do? How do we feel? How do we cope? There is hope. You can do this. There's definitely light on the other side of this. And we're here to help you do that together with this community. And so if you want to share this with other people, that will help them. And as a community, we can do this as a team, as a group, right? Yeah. Together. And the more we do this together, the more power it has and the more we can reach. So we really appreciate that. If you're watching on our YouTube channel also, by the way, we're live there now. If you want to go ahead and hit subscribe, that would support our channel and reach more people there. And if you want to be notified of any of the content or the broadcasts that go on our YouTube channel, make sure you hit that bell icon so you can get notified. And all right. So, and then your mom's here.
Hey, Mom.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
You guys, thank you for all your prayers, like we said. And you guys go on with your day and have a wonderful day. And we will see you later.
Next time. God bless.